Hey everyone, welcome to this video on Mission Support Foundation for Arma 3. Now, Mission Support Foundation is a mod that I've been working on for about 2 years now. Note that this is not a video on Arma 3 itself or a video on how to use Addon Editor. There are tons of awesome videos out there that go into detail on how to create missions in Addon and how to play Arma and all that stuff. This mod has grown quite a bit and has a lot of options in it. And I wanted to do a video series on the ins and outs and how they work. So that way it's a lot easier for people to understand how this stuff works and they can start using it in their missions. So this mod was created out of a need to have scripts and other components help support story-based items in my missions. So what is the Mission Support Foundation? It's a mod that allows you to do a bunch of different things story-wise for your missions, and it adds several capabilities that you can add to your missions, like logistics management and unit spawning in different areas, patrols, just a bunch of stuff to make great story-based missions. So here's the Steam page for it, the workshop page. There is another version that is out there. It is the old version. Something happened about a month and a half ago and Steam stopped letting me update the mod. And I ended up having, after a long conversation with Bohemia and Steam, neither of them wanted to help me, so I ended up having to just create a new workshop mod for it. So if you're using the old mod, I highly suggest you unsubscribe from that and subscribe to this one, because I keep updating this one regularly. All right, so let's talk about how to configure the Mission Support Foundation. So there's a bunch of places that you can go to configure settings. We have the Mission Support Foundation menu entry here in Addon. This will take you to the documentation. This I talk about later in some of the add-on option settings. And then we have MSF settings here, which I go over in the next section, and configure multiplayer. So if you've started a new map or you have a map and you want to configure some multiplayer settings, I created this as a quick and easy way for my friends when they're making missions to be able to configure multiplayer the way that we want it to be configured. So what it does is it goes in and it sets select respawn position, show respawn counter, and it sets it to respawn on a custom position. It sets the delay, and it shows the respawn map and position selector whenever you do respawn. Now, one thing that is a little bit wonky I've noticed with my maps is that it has you respawn whenever the mission starts for some weird unknown reason that I haven't been able to figure out. So let's switch over to VS Codium here. So in this missions folder, I have the description ext. If you haven't created one for your mission, you don't really need to, but to get rid of having to select a respawn position when you start the mission, I add this here. So respawn on start, setting it to -1, makes it not have you respawn, and it does not run any respawn code whenever the mission starts. And that prevents me from having to do any kind of respawn or select the location. Okay, so that covers configure multiplayer. The next thing is under add-on options. So MSF has 3 sections. So logistics system, which we'll cover later on in a separate video. Server settings, which are settings that typically only affect code that runs on the server. And then user settings, which is code that executes primarily only on the client machines and affects only the clients. All right, so let's get into it. First thing we want to take a look at is the settings. So the Mission Support Foundation menu bar here, we'll go into mission settings, and we got a bunch of options here. So enable TFAR radios adds a radio to each player if this is checked and TFAR is installed. I know TFAR has its own option for that, but I've noticed that sometimes it's unreliable. So I created my own. Then we're going to switch down to multiplayer options. So respawn on player and join near player. So if respawn on player is enabled, it will add each player that starts the mission as a respawn position for everyone to use. When join near player is enabled, when a player joins after a mission has started, it will place them within 100 meters of the main group of players when they start the mission. And then persist vehicle customizations, what this allows you to do is if you have some vehicles that are linked up to vehicle respawn points and you've customized them in the garage, it will, upon respawn, apply those customizations back to that vehicle once it's been respawned. All right, so the first module that we're going to cover here is the ACE scenario ending module. So under MSF, we'll go to ACE scenario end. I've already got one placed here. It only has the apply to option here. So I got it to synchronize objects, and I have synchronized it to my two guys here. And then I have it synchronized to a trigger. Now this trigger is any player present or whatever condition that you need to satisfy for your end of mission to trigger. So what this does is when this trigger is activated, it adds a ACE self-interact item for any players that are synced to this module to be able to end the mission. And so say I have a couple more players here. Now, since they are not synced, they will not have that option. Only these two guys will. So let's demonstrate this. I've loaded in my mission here, and I have my tree of completion here. So if I do a self-interact, I've got the normal ACE stuff. So as I get into this trigger area, it'll notify me, hey, our main mission objective is completed. Use the end mission option in your ACE self menu to end the mission when you're ready. So I open up my ACE self-interact here, and I now have this end mission. So when I activate it, there we go, mission complete. So the next module that we'll talk about is the area escape ending. So what this module allows you to do is define an area that you need to escape from in order to successfully complete the mission. There's really no parameters for it. It just takes a look at all players and checks to see if they're outside. One of them is outside of the area in order for this to pick up. So let's test it out here. All right. So if I move myself all the way outside of that range, let's say here, it'll see that at least one of the players is outside of that zone and complete the mission. So the next module that I want to talk about is the random spawn location modules, which goes along with the crash pick at spawn modules. So I have these modules here, and I can place multiple on the map. And what they will do is they will act as locations where the system can randomly choose a start point for you. And at the start of the mission, it will spawn players at one of those randomly selected locations. Now, it does not work in Eden. I've coded it so that way it will not randomly spawn you in different locations when you're doing mission development. So in order to test this, I'm gonna have to export it and then host a multiplayer game here. All right, so we're starting here, and as you can see, I'm down here at one of those points that instead of up here that I had. If I hit continue, I am not where I placed players at. All right, so we've restarted the mission, and now we are in a different location. from the last one that we started, which was down here. The other thing that we have with this is this module here, crash big at spawn. So basically all this will do is at the selected spawn point, it will choose a random vehicle or aircraft and spawn it in, destroyed, with some flames and smoke effect. No, they make it seem as if you've crashed. Moving on to the next module, we have the Game Master module. So any player that gets synced to this module will have access to a GM menu. Right now there's only 2 commands in it. One is to reveal all enemies on the map. The other is to spawn an ace arsenal crate. So choose that option. I have arsenal crate. And then when you're done with it, you can just use the remove box option to make it disappear. And then reveal all enemies will just show everything on the map. All right, so next we have the infinite fuel module. For this one, we're gonna need a vehicle. Here we go. All right, so we'll sync this up to this vehicle. And my buddy in here. So, oh yes, and I want to set this to 50 just for demonstrational purposes. So when this starts, it adds each vehicle synced to that module, and you can have more than one of those modules to a, and it has already happened, to a service worker that runs every so many seconds and just keeps refilling the fuel of this vehicle here. So if I, so say, yep, there it goes. It immediately refilled it. This can be configured in Addon Options. Go down to MSF, to server settings, and here's the infinite fuel tick. So it's programmed right now to check every 15 seconds and refill every vehicle that is synced up to one of those modules. All right, so the next module we'll go over is the Better Show Hide. What it does is it allows you to show and or hide continuously. So as you get closer to, as you enter the trigger area, it will show anyone that you have selected. And when you leave it, it will hide them again. Okay, so now that we have that set up, and I start heading towards this shack here, you'll see they've been hidden automatically by the module. As I get closer, they pop into existence. Now, if I back up, they're not going to disappear because I forgot to set the trigger as repeatable. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So now when I play the mission, they're gone again, as they should be. And as I get closer, they'll pop in. And as I back up, oh, there they go. Now they're here. Now they're not. One of the things I did take a look at is if there's vehicles that are synced to this, it will check to make sure they're still in the trigger before it deactivates and hides them. All right, so the next module that we're going to take a look at is the Delete Units module. So this one is kind of more for cinematics than anything else. I have a mission where a vehicle drives down the road with its headlights on in a infill night mission, and I just want that unit to disappear after it's out of sight. So that's what this module does. So I'm going to let's do a FedEx, and I'm going to put him right here. Now I'm going to give him move waypoint down here. And so when I place this module, all I need to do is sync up or select the layer, this module to this vehicle. And then when I start, what's gonna happen is we're gonna see this guy start driving. And as he gets close to that module, he's just gonna pop out of existence. There we go. So that's all that module's for. It is mainly cinematic, but I guess it can also be used for a mission where you need to just send a bunch of units to go get deleted or something. All right, so the next module that we're going to cover is definitely a cinematic one. This is the Dialog Helper module. So it requires a lot of external configuration. I'm not really going to get into that in this video. There's a couple videos that do cover it. So you could just do a quick search, YouTube search for config sentences, probably will get you what you need. But to configure this, you need to provide it a dialog path, and I'll give you a demonstration of that here in a second. A task ID. So if you have a task for players to talk to so-and-so person, you can put that task ID in here and it will complete it upon them talking to or this NPC. And then custom action, once the conversation is underway, this code can be executed. You can provide a script, you can provide whatever you need to provide during or after the conversation has completed. So what do we need? So let's switch over to VS Code. And what we can do is take a look at the description ext for this mission. So you'll need config sentences, and then this class here was the left side of those double right arrows, and then this is the right side of it. So it would be MSF test, arrow, arrow, and then civ. And in here you have your BIKB file, which is here twice, and that is here where you define your dialogue, your text, your speech, and all that stuff. So I'm not going to get into how to configure this, but after seeing that, you would do, oops. So you do it like that. And then once you're done with that, you have your NPC and you just sync them up to that. And there you go. Okay, so the next module that we're going to talk about is the destroy buildings module. So what this module does for you, when you find a town, is destroy buildings. I know, so descriptive. So any building inside of this area of the module has a chance of being destroyed, and you can set that chance here. Let's say 50%. And then you can also put a fire at the location of that building. It is a fire and some smoke. I highly suggest, if you enable this, put the fire spawn chance really low. The reason being is it can tank somebody that doesn't have the best graphics card and computer. It can tank their performance a lot. All right, so let's see here. All right, so it has destroyed about three buildings here. Okay, not terrible. There's a lot more to choose from. Oh yeah, there we go. Now we're looking like a war zone. All right, so we've got a bunch of buildings here destroyed. Ah, here we go. See, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So of all these buildings that we destroyed, we have 5 fires. And that was only at 15%. So definitely want to keep that kind of low. Okay, and the last module we're going to go over here is the progress bar interaction module. So what this does is it allows you to set up an interaction with an object that players can then interact with, have a progress bar of their time, and then execute some kind of code afterward. So let's set up a demonstration here. Let's do this one. Oops. All right. So I'll sync this up to this guy. And let's get into these settings. So the interaction time is just how long you have to hold it for. I'll do 15 seconds. The action text is what I'm going to do. And then the action code is code that is run on completion. So let's just do... Okay. And then the fail text is any text that will pop up if the action is not completed successfully or is interrupted. And then, of course, repeatable is if you want them to be able to do it multiple times. So let's take a look at it like this first. So we'll come up to the terminal and we'll have an interaction, base interaction prompt with it that says hack terminal. So we'll do that. And once we get close, it'll execute the hint code that I put in there, and we are no longer able to interact with it. Now, if I update it and let's just make it repeatable. All right. So I'll run back up to it, ace interacts. This time, however, I'm going to interrupt it real quick. All right. So it gives me a hint stating what I put in the fail text block. So I'm going to go back and redo this. All right, and so now it executes that code. And as you can see, I can do it again. So that covers most of the base MSF modules. I do want to talk about a few other settings in here. So under add-on options, there is a MSF user setting. So there's 3 things in here that are kind of useful. Well, actually 2 that are useful. The other one doesn't matter. So Ace Medical Unconscious. I play with a friend who hates blacking out and just laying there waiting for somebody to work on them. Cannot play the game with that enabled, and there's no way to turn that off in Ace that I've seen. So what this does is if somebody unchecks this, what happens is if they enter into an unconscious state, code will then immediately just kill them so that they can respawn. Debug messages is not really used right now. I'm reworking that part, but basically would show in system chat messages from the system as it's doing different things and whatnot, so you could monitor what's happening. And then logistics system messages. So I don't really want to go into the logistics system, but it does send messages to either an individual player that is interacting with the system or the entire group of players as a whole. So these can be turned on and off here. This is not an overwritable setting. So this is only set on the player's machine and cannot be overwritten by the server or the machine. So let's hop into server settings real quick. There's a few things here that we can go into. So the first one here is disabling enemy lanes. Anastasia is a fun thing that our group plays together, but we're a small group and that game mode was not built for a small group. And we like to use a lot of armor, vehicles, and other things like that. And it really gets frustrating when you are fighting a group of 4 and you're fighting a base. You've got a Bradley with you, and all of a sudden, an A10 just spawns right on top of you and completely obliterates you. That is not fun gameplay. So, to make it more fun for us, we have disabled those planes. It removes them from the game only if anti-sizing is running. All right, so this is disabled by default. So unless you turn it on, it won't affect your server. Another thing I want to talk about here is player weapon override. So what you can do is you can provide a list of weapons that players can choose from, and anytime that they spawn, it will overwrite whatever weapon they have with the weapon that they have selected. So let's take a look here. So let's say that we have these guys over here, and I've configured magazine counts and primary weapons for them, and I want to capture that for the player weapon system. So I'll select them, come up here and do get weapon data. Now that will copy to my clipboard the configuration. And if I hit Control V, you'll see, okay, we got some stuff here. It's just weapons and their magazine counts. So then I can go into Addon Options and I can paste that. In here into the weapon configs. And then when I enable the weapon override on mission launch, players will be able to go into the MSF user settings, and they'll be able to select their preferred weapon. So default is whatever that class or that unit that the mission maker put down as defined. So if it's just a vanilla Arma unit, then it's going to be the MX rifle. But I can go in and say I want this ACR here. Hit OK, and now I have my ACR. So it's a nice way to put your unit's favorite weapons in a pool and allow players to select from them.